not be the Broncos in the big game this Sunday, but excitement is building for the Super Bowl. While preparations are happening on the field, Scripps News has been investigating what happens outside the lines when players run out of bounds and into people on the sidelines, sometimes leaving them with broken bones.
National investigative reporter Lori Jane Gliha in the studio tonight. Fascinating investigation. So what exactly did you and your team find?
Yeah, we found a lot of interesting things, especially because we haven't seen any evidence that anyone else has done an investigation and an analysis like this. We asked the NFL if they did, and they did not respond to that question. So we did the work. We reviewed every single NFL game this season and tracked every time someone was physically knocked off their feet on the sidelines, and we found dozens of incidents.
With 6 seconds left in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers game against the Atlanta Falcons, a Hail Mary pass was the home team's final chance at victory. You can see players from both teams collide with a security officer in this video we obtained through a public records request from the Florida Highway Patrol. The officer, who is a volunteer state trooper, gets knocked down just as the Bucs lose the game.
So you're there to keep people safe. How often had you thought about your own safety?
That's a good question. I never did until now.
79-year-old Bob Olakar says his security assignment last October was to keep his eyes on the crowd and his back to the game.
I was actually doing what I'm supposed to do. Back to the field, eyes to the audience. I'm looking to see if there's any disturbances up there.
Bob suffered a fractured ankle that required surgeries, a plate, and pins, leaving him in bed for months.
How would you describe this period of recovery in your life?
It was very frustrating, really, because I couldn't do what I could normally do. They say, yeah, you'll be normal in about a year or so, but I'm not really sure what they mean normal.
Our exclusive Scripps News investigation found out-of-bounds collisions happened every week during this NFL season. Hits like these. We found people regularly knocked off their feet while working or standing on the sidelines. And we found NFL players asked the league years ago to address sideline safety. Last October in New England, a Patriots offensive line coach broke a tooth and his nose in a collision with an opposing cornerback. And in New Orleans during the 2023 season, a member of the chain crew was carted off with a dislocated knee after a collision with a Saints player. Players have been injured too. In 2022, a Washington football team tight end ran into a sideline photographer and left the field on a stretcher. And former Denver Broncos linebacker Aaron Patrick tore his ACL when his shoe got stuck on equipment while trying to avoid a sideline collision with an official. In a lawsuit against the NFL, he called the conditions dangerous and alleged they committed negligence by failing to ensure player safety. The NFL got those court claims dismissed due to his players' union agreement. The same year Patrick was injured, the then president of the NFL Players Union issued a call for improved sideline safety. Clear the excess people and dangerous equipment from the sidelines, he wrote. Year after year, the NFL tells us they will look into it, and year after year, nothing ever changes. Our exclusive Scripps News investigation found dozens of out-of-bounds collisions in the 2024 season alone. We reviewed every single game, 284 of them, tracking collisions captured on camera strong enough to knock someone off their feet. But we cannot show you the video of those collisions because the NFL refused our request to license the footage. We tracked 87 times when players plowed into someone and knocked them over. At least 5 involved significant injuries like blood or broken bones. At least 20 incidents involved photographers, and at least 13 hits involved members of the NFL chain crew.
On the sideline, How many times have you seen someone be hit by a player that's coming out of bounds?
A lot, because they don't understand how fast these guys are coming.
Wade Manning is a retired NFL player who told us he also has experience working the sidelines inspecting players' uniforms for NFL compliance.
So if a player's coming at me this way, I look right at it And then when I see the direction, then I just go, I'll let them go by. The average person on the sideline, they can't do that, and they freeze, and they don't know which way to go. And then they usually pick the wrong way and get clocked.
Manning, the president of the Rocky Mountain chapter of the NFL Alumni Association, says it's dangerous for anyone to have their back to the game, and the sidelines are getting crowded.
If you're sitting on that first level, you can't see the game. That's how many people there is.
It's crowded.
And it's all the way, around the bench.
Do you think all of the people that are on the sideline need to be on the sideline?
No.
And what would you say to people who say, look, it's just part of the game. All the people that are on the sideline, they have to be there.
You can still have safety for those people, okay? You should cut the numbers down on how many people are on the sideline.
We wanted to interview the NFL, which is headquartered here in New York City, but the league declined. Instead, they gave us a written statement saying the league is committed to making sure everyone involved in an NFL game is as safe as possible.
The league also said those with roles near the field are reminded to stay aware of the game action, which can sometimes spill over. The NFL also told us the number of personnel on the sidelines remains at COVID-era lows when the league dramatically limited permitted staff and media, something the Players Association disputes. The players' perspective and experience is certainly not that sidelines are at COVID-era lows or clear of non-essential equipment and personnel, they told us in a written statement. But we welcome a constructive dialogue with the league because it seems we are not seeing issues on the sideline the same way.
I got all this stuff because they love me.
Bob Alakar says he received swag from both teams after his sideline injury.
Get well soon, and he signed his name.
Oh, very cool.
He's still recovering and says he has advice for the next person in his position.
Do you think there should be a change in the way training happens for these types of games?
Oh, yeah. And they should show videos like this.
Now, while out-of-bounds collisions have always been a part of football, we did hear some ideas for making it safer. For example, Bob suggested having an extra security staff member to alert officers like him who have their backs turned to the game when they're in danger. We also heard move people farther back from the sideline. And then, of course, there's an ongoing conversation about using technology to spot the ball and first downs rather than the old school chain crew. We asked the NFL about this, but they did not respond to that specific question by our deadline.
And Lori Jane, the Players Association raised some concerns not only about the number of people on the sidelines, but specifically the dangerous equipment. So you watched every single game. I can't believe you even did that. Did you see any issues with players hitting equipment?
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and yes, we did. We saw them hitting coolers, we saw them tripping on chains, slipping on tarps. Even some big machinery, kind of looked like a crane. We did not include any of those in the hits in our final number or any of the other hits that people had unless they fell over. But I will say in the Broncos home games, we did track 2 in which chain crew members were knocked off their feet.
So you and Bob mentioned this briefly about showing people on the sidelines videos, because I mean that's an eye opener right there. What are the possibilities of that actually happening?
Yeah, it's certainly an idea that he thinks would be beneficial. I will say my producer edited together nearly 90 videos, and when you watch that, it definitely makes you think twice about where you might be wanting to stand on the sidelines. I will say the retired NFL player that we interviewed also told us that he thought it might be helpful to even invite people like security officers to the practices so that they can see how fast these players can be when they're ducking out of bounds.
Definitely want to give them a heads up and get them prepared. I've been on the sidelines. It's scary.
Yes.
They're big players. They're moving fast. It's very intense and intimidating. I was glad to go back to the press box.
Yeah, great work. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thanks
Very
so much.
All right,
Thanks for
good to
having
see
me.
you.
Lori Jane Gleehoff for us in tonight. Thank you so much for that report.